introduce yourself, like my name is Luke and I'm in recovery, or I'm an addict, or whatever, however you like to say
Yeah,
it.
well, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah. I'm Luke and I'm an addict. Every day was different in addiction. Nothing was ever really the same. I lived by my own rules and I used by those same rules. Life was chaotic. I did whatever I wanted when I wanted to do it and ended up in jail, a good portion of the time. That was the result of my life in addiction. But without that, I probably never would have found recovery either. But, it was, and it was progressive. Originally, like, it started off as weekends or, under control, or what I thought was under control. I could control it till I couldn't, if I ever could. But my head told me I could. And it got to a point where, I was just a slave to the dope. If I didn't have a hit, I didn't want to get up. If I didn't have a hit, I didn't want to go to bed. My whole life, thinking and everything revolved around dope. The getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. That's it. I'm not exactly sure if I can pinpoint it down to one thing, really. I mean, it was a multitude of things. A lengthy jail stay. It was no longer, 60 days or 90 days. I just barely escaped the federal system. Year and a half in jail. I still planned to pick up when I left. At that point, I wasn't committed to quitting. I still fully intended on using. I had cigarettes in my property. Couldn't wait to have one. Had someone pick me up who I knew would have dope. And when that moment came and I got released, I grabbed the smoke. I was about to light it, and I just thought, looking at the people who picked me up, and I'm like, seeing the toll that life had taken on, people I cared about over the time I was gone, and that was the beginning of the shift in my thinking, I guess. I didn't end up lighting that smoke. I thought, I'm just gonna do this. Gonna not smoke. I already had treatment lined up, which was more or less, I set that up because my grandfather wanted me to, and I just wanted to make him happy, right? That was the reason that I, started the process. I hadn't really thought that I would actually quit, but, I was going through the motions anyways. Everything happened as it was supposed to happen, I guess. I mean, I do believe in God. I don't believe it's the God in, let's say, the Bible or mainstream, whatever, but I do believe something's there. And, whatever I needed to go through, whatever moments I needed to experience to lead me to, choosing to try and make a better life, I did. I managed to make it through the week before treatment without picking up, and, I got to treatment and still wasn't completely sold. Figured, oh, well, I'll go do this, and, then we'll go from there. And, got there, didn't know what to think, and it was, it was great. I mean, I'd just come from jail, so, this was pretty good. Everyone else complain about stuff, and I mean, like, I'm just like, yeah, this is great. I don't know, at some point in that stay there is when I decided, I'm going to actually take a good run at this. maybe life is possible without using dope. Well, I mean, as far as my beliefs on recovery, I really didn't have any, like, per se set in stone beliefs on what recovery was. I definitely didn't believe that, someone could stay sober and still enjoy life. That seemed preposterous to me, right? In sober living, I mean, I don't know if I'd say myths, but, I'd heard some horror stories for sure. I heard from people who had been, to places and had bad experiences. For a while, I was buying dope from a guy who lived at a sober living house. So, my thoughts on that were not very great, right? I mean, and going into treatment, I was dead against it. I wasn't going to sober living because I didn't need that. I was just going to, get through the treatment process, get my own place, and figure it out from there, right? Sober living wasn't something I needed. Was I scared to ask for help in addiction? Well, I mean, absolutely. Am I scared to ask for help today? Still sometimes, yeah, for sure. I don't like asking for help. It's difficult for me. And I mean, that doesn't just go for recovery, or it's with everything. I'm learning to work with it a bit more. But I always believed asking for help made me pure weak, right? Growing up, I got picked on a lot and bullied, and a lot of the times I'd ask for something, it was just, the answer was always no, or do it yourself. Or I got so used to just relying on myself, and that anytime I'd ask for help from somebody, that it would either be in some way turned around and used against me, or I just end up having to do it on my own anyways, because nobody actually wanted to help me, right? Finally surrendering to the fact that I'm powerless over my substance use and addiction. I mean, that was a tough one. But it felt like a weight had been lifted, right? Because something that I knew in some capacity all along, I now knew that it didn't have to control me. That it was okay to surrender to the fact that I didn't have it all figured out. And that it didn't make me weak because I could take accountability for my actions and start a life where I knew I had no control over, my addiction. I mean, essentially, detox is necessary to get sober, because you got to get off the shit. Now, that may look different for everyone. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that keeps me going and, keeps me from picking up, is that I don't have to stop, right? If I don't pick up, I don't have to stop. Because once I pick up, I can't stop. And I won't stop. Detox for me is jail. Or something equivalent. You gotta lock me in a room, throw away the key, because if I'm not, I'll find a way to get more. Mm-hmm. And I will continue using. So what was the detox process like for me? It was rough, right? I mean, I don't know what detox is like at a medically a medical facility that's, there for that exact purpose, I feel like it's probably a bit of a better experience. But that just wasn't the way I experienced it, right? I mean, I never even tried. Because as long as I had some dope or was able to get some more dope, I mean, I didn't want detox. Because that would mess up my using. Like, change is scary. Or it is for me, anyways. I don't know. I wish I could have listened to all the people who, tried to tell me about a better way of life, or, make me realize what I was doing was getting me nowhere. Detox is not a pleasant experience in any means. It leads to all the better stuff. It doesn't last forever. Treatment, for the most part, went pretty much how I expected it would go. For myself, talking to the counselor, I mean, I had a great counselor, don't get me wrong, but like talking about things, my life, or whatever else, I mean, that, I don't know, it doesn't really, that part doesn't really affect me the way it does some people, I guess. I guess the biggest thing that surprised me about treatment was that there were people who would actually accept and like me for me. Because I didn't think that was possible. For so long it was, the only reason people wanted to hang out with me was because I could bring them some dope, or, I was able to provide something, right? Now I've got all these people who genuinely accepted me for me. So that was a big shock. Probably the biggest shock for me anyways. I mean, and sober living, I mean, again, I was against it. I wasn't going to sober living because it wasn't gonna do me any good. But at some point, I took a chance on it, and I took the advice of some people at the treatment center. Some of the staff that played a very significant role in my journey, as far as I see it, my success in recovery. And I mean, sober living turned out to be great. Again, I now had these, people who I got to live with who, became like brothers. It wasn't like I thought it would be. We were just a bunch of guys who wanted to stay sober together. I guess it was a big shock to see, like, how many people don't make it, right? I mean, because at first it's like, oh, we're all gonna be, friends forever, we're all gonna be killing it, and that's not the case. But I think the biggest surprise with sober living was that it was just a safe space that I could get my feet on the ground, I could get my recovery thriving. I could meet people, make connections. Connections is the opposite of addiction. Apparently that's true. Didn't think so at first. That was a big shock too. What did I not expect to get out of it? I guess, like, friendships, family, this better way of life. What's the hardest part about staying clean? For me, I guess, like, one of the hardest parts of staying clean is it can get lonely at times. And having to leave behind, a lot of people who I did care about at one time or another, and it's just not all that feasible to keep people I used with or who are still using in my life when I'm trying not to use. And just trying to, I guess, realize my self-worth, like believe in myself, I guess. My confidence was always given to me by the substance, because my worst enemy lives in my head. Sometimes that's tough because I make myself believe almost anything. It's trying to convince myself not to believe it after, right? I still struggle with, getting outside of my comfort zone, trying new things, meeting new people, stuff. Because I feel like, in my head tells me, well, they're not going to want to be friends with you, or nobody wants to talk to you, like, where I know these aren't true, but my brain tries to tell me they are. This is pretty believable sometimes. That's the biggest challenge, I think. I think, especially in early recovery, structure and routine is essential for any kind of success, right? I mean, having that structure and that routine and sticking to it, it just makes it that much easier, because you get rid of that, like, variable of the unknown, I guess, so to speak. You find a routine that works for you, and try not to rush anything, force anything, and I mean, at the end of the day, recovery has to be your number one focus, or it does for me anyways. And sometimes that's a struggle, because I'm an addict. I want everything today. Yesterday, probably a week ago would have been best, but definitely not tomorrow, right? Like, and that's tough sometimes. But having a solid routine and structure that, my life revolves around my recovery, then recovery becomes my life, and it just seems to work. Mornings are a challenge. I'm not a morning person, but I, get up, I go to work. After work, I have commitments that I keep. I do still keep my focus for the most part on my recovery, because I wouldn't have anything else without it. Life is busy, but I have my commitments to my recovery, and I do my best to still stick to them, right? I go to some meetings. I hang out with other people in recovery. There are, a few key people in my life today who have played significant roles in my recovery. There are, people from the treatment center who helped set me on the path that ultimately led to success, and, has allowed me to get a few days back to back. And, like, with going to sober living, everybody who came through there, everyone I went there with, they're not all around anymore, but the important ones are. They're like brothers, right? Realistically, they're more of my brothers than my actual family is. Even though I'm clean and sober and in recovery doesn't mean everyone else is gonna, see it that way, or, just allow you back into their life. Or, I mean, I don't have to let everyone else back into my life either. But there's been a few key people, right, that have helped me in my recovery and helped shape my life into what it is today. And, people who I talk to on a regular basis, that I can reach out to with my struggles if I need to. Even though I already know what they're going to say most of the time, but sometimes you need to hear it, I guess. I mean, admitting that I need to ask for help from time to time, that frustrates me, for sure. And depending on who it is I have to ask for help, it might frustrate me even more. My family that I've gained in recovery has been essential to my growth, and really at the end of the day, they're a lot of the times the ones who even make me see the growth in myself. Because I don't tend to see it all the time. What sober living did for me is it gave me that safe space where I could learn to live life without the use of drugs. Because I didn't know how. I lived a good portion of my life without them, growing up. I didn't start using super young. As soon as I could, I did, I guess. And so I didn't know how to live life. I didn't know how to, process feelings, patience. Kind of just kept me accountable at the same time. I took it seriously. The rules were that, we are expected to, show up for ourselves, for our recovery, and for, the rest of the people in the house. And I took that seriously. I tried not to miss things. I tried to, and if I did, I usually had a fairly good reason. It allowed me to get my feet on the ground and under me, make connections. But at the end of the day, when you live in a safe environment with other people who are of the same mindset, it makes it easier because there's always someone to talk to. And it helps to keep that recovery your main focus. And without it, I don't think I'd still be sober. Because I don't know that I would have pushed myself to get out of that comfort zone, to go to meetings, to, try and meet people. I think it's a very important stage. This treatment's great. But once you leave there, it's easy to do treatment. But now you got to start fending for yourself and, learning how to be responsible with your money, paying bills, making food, all the things that sometimes we don't know how to do. Living with others in recovery has allowed me to keep recovery, in the forefront of my life. Because if I didn't live with other people in recovery, or, I just went back to living with family, or, even on my own, it's pretty easy for, my brain to start getting ahead of itself, and, I start thinking about, using or whatever. And when you live with other people in recovery, it helps to keep you accountable, right? Because if I'm living with a bunch of people who are also trying to work at the same goal I am, which is staying clean, we're going to notice, changes in each other and, be there to help each other. I think that's huge. And accountability for me, is being able to own my shit. I try not to blame my using on anyone else other than me, because it wasn't anyone else's choice. That choice was mine. Just like the choice was mine to get clean and stay clean. And be honest about it. Even when you try not to be honest about it, it's pretty easy to see when, you're fucking up or something. Everyone else sees it around you, right? If you're living with people in recovery, anyways. Someone's unsure about going into sober living, what would I say to them? What do you got to lose? Realistically, what do you got to lose? I was dead against going to sober living. I'd heard the horror stories. I didn't need that. Not going to help me. But it comes back to that accountability part. It's a safe space. And, everyone else there is going to be focusing on the same things, which is building your life in recovery. Like I said, I don't think I'd be clean and sober today if I hadn't gone. Because I probably wouldn't have pushed myself to, get out of my comfort zone and make those connections. Because as funny as it sounds, connection is the opposite of addiction. What do you got to lose? Well, for the longest time, I didn't believe in nothing. I was an atheist, I guess you could say. We evolved from monkeys, and I feel like the evidence is there. I won't go into that, but I do believe that there is something greater than myself now. I choose to call it God. I don't necessarily believe that it's, white-haired, bearded guy living up in the clouds. Not really sure I buy into that, but is there something greater than me? Oh, for sure there is. And I get to see examples of it all the time. Lots of things happen in life that aren't coincidental, or I don't believe that it could be just a coincidence. When you really start thinking about everything, we live on this round sphere in the middle of a black nothingness, and we just live and eat and, survive. It's pretty cool. There's got to be something else out there. Something greater than myself. Or I'd be dead for sure. Multiple times I overdosed, and a couple pretty serious experiences that I should not have lived through. So why did I? I definitely believe that there's something greater than myself, and for me, I don't need to know what it is. I'm good with just knowing that it is, I guess. And it takes a bit of expectations off myself, too, right? Because I know as long as I try to do the next best thing and better myself and stay clean and sober, that things are going to work out. Whatever my path is supposed to be, and it, as long as I don't try to use my will for everything, things seem to work out the way they should. Be patient with us, I guess. The biggest thing that I think, and that I tell people who family or whatever, I've had a few people that, they have a loved one who's struggling and they just want to help. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't force someone into recovery. You can't force someone to get clean. For someone to actually get clean and stay clean and live in recovery, they've got to come to that conclusion on their own. It's got to be their choice, which is hard. I get to look back now and think about my family who for years tried to get me to see the light, and until I was ready, I wasn't hearing it. And it just pushed me further away, right? So, you just gotta be patient and, be there, but that's a tough one. Addiction isn't always a choice. Now, that is a complex answer, because I do have the choice of whether I want to pick up. I do have that choice. 100%. But as an addict, I don't have the choice to stop. Once I pick up, I have no control over stopping. Addiction doesn't discriminate. We're either an addict or we're not. Because I've known lots of people over the years who could use successfully. They could turn it off. They could stop. I can't. There is a better way. And once that initial choice to stop is made, and however it happens, life gets easier one day at a time. Smarten the fuck up. The same thing everyone else was telling me. Weird. I wish I could have figured it out sooner, but I didn't. That's okay too. What I say to someone who thinks recovery is just temporary or fake? Recovery is real. It's 100% accomplishable, and it's not temporary as long as you do the work. If I can quit and stay clean for a significant amount of time, anyone can. What have I gained in recovery? That list is long. Things that I never expected. I never expected to be sitting here in front of a camera talking about my story. Not in my wildest dreams. I've gained people in my life who are not only friends, but I consider my family. People who don't give a fuck what I bring to the table. They still like me even if I don't have a bag of dope. That's pretty cool. And I didn't expect that either, right? Feelings. I don't feel things as, some people do, but, there are feelings, and I can feel them now. Sometimes I don't want to, but I do. I sleep every night, and it feels good. I'm worth something, right? That's pretty cool too. Learning to love myself. Never thought that would happen either. What do I miss from the life I left behind? I miss the chaos sometimes. I miss the craziness of, the life I led in addiction. Because I don't live a life like that anymore. And, I couldn't without the use of drugs because it's just so absurd. But at times I miss it. And there's people I miss too, right? Relationships. People who are still out there using, right? And people who I'll never see again. What do I love about my life now? Well, I love that I can make it between paychecks and still, be alright. Because in addiction, that never happened. Didn't matter how much money I made. By payday, well, usually a couple days after payday, it's usually broke again, right? Struggling to figure that out. I don't have to do that no more. I get to go to school to better my life and my employment. I get to see the change in other people. I get to watch the miracle happen, right? And that's pretty cool. And all I got to do is be me, right? Which is crazy because, again, my brain tells me that I'm not really all that important. The more I manage to stay clean, the more people who I talk to or share experiences with, and I start to learn that, you really helped me when you said this, or that's awesome. That I can have an impact on someone else's life and helping them stay clean just by being me. That's pretty cool too. Love that. And the peace. My life's pretty simple. It's busy. It's not chaotic. I'm not always trying to figure out how to unfuck myself. Life's fairly predictable. It's manageable. Freedom for me today, obviously in the obvious aspect, I'm not in a jail cell. That's, freeing. But I'm also free to, make my own choices. I'm free to do what I want without the use of dope. Live my life without the restrictions of addiction. I don't really know 100% what I want my life to look like in 5 years. I've got ideas, but I don't really like putting expectations on myself. I'd like to, finish my apprenticeship. Eventually in the next 5 years, I'd like to, hopefully buy a house. Things like that. I have goals and stuff, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't. I know I can't do any of these things if I don't stay clean. Because if I don't stay clean, I just gotta get more dope. And that becomes the goal and dream in life, is just to get the next fucking bag, right? I'll tell myself all sorts of other things, but that's the reality of it. Is my life is finding ways and means to get more. That's it. That's my life. So in 5 years, I want to be clean. That's the one thing that I will put, that I in stone. In 5 years, I want to be clean and sober. Everything else I can accomplish is a bonus. But I won't accomplish any of them if I'm not clean and sober. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
100%.
What is hope to me? Hope is the desire for a better life, I guess. I don't know if that's the way to say it. Hope is knowing that a better life is possible if I don't pick up. Recovery is achievable for anyone who wants it. Simply put. I know if guys like us can stay clean, so anyone can. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the truth.